Palworld.
Okay, so if you haven't been living under a rock the past week, then you've probably heard this word a few times. And yes, I'm talking about Palworld. Palworld is a new game that is taking over the world by storm, sparking up a bit of controversy along the way because of the resemblance to Pokemon.
So help me understand, how do I not have a case? That's literally a black Lucario.
That's not a black Lucario. That's Anubis.
Anubis?
In Palworld, they call him Anubis, yeah.
What?
And this controversy has sparked up Twitter more than any other game I've ever seen, because Palworld has been an eye-opener, showing that Pokemon with modern graphics has a ton of potential. And with the quality of games Pokemon has been producing lately, a lot of Pokemon fans have been voicing their opinions about the Pokemon games. It's between the Palworld community and the Pokemon community butting heads and just duking it out. It's not just one-sided though. People of the Pokemon community are claiming that Palworld ripped off Pokemon.
Is that not even?
That's Grimace.
Grimace. How much time have you spent on this game?
And since people claim it's a ripoff, people are wondering if Nintendo will sue Palworld. Well, yes and no. It's kind of complicated. We'll get to that later. Palworld has made records, having the 5th highest concurrent Steam player count ever, and the highest concurrent player count of any paid game, selling over 5 million copies in the first few days, surpassing huge games like Cyberpunk. And this is not just a tiny game. It's huge. I remember when these games were in development 2 years ago and nobody batted an eye. But once Palworld started making records and competing with Pokemon, then people started to get upset. But don't just take my word for it. This is what Moist Critical has to say about it.
Yeah, I've actually heard good things about this. Initially, this looked like it was just going to be riding off the shock of its gimmick like a Pokemon-style game with guns. But I have heard nothing but incredible things about this game, like being genuinely good.
Alright, we already heard it from the best critic on YouTube. There's no need to talk about this anymore. Problem solved. But what exactly is Palworld? What is the game? In basic terms, it's a survival multiplayer game where you capture pals, and you use pals to destroy other pals to gain experience, or weakening those pals to add them to your team. And if that kind of sounds like Pokemon, then you're not wrong. It really does sound like Pokemon, but it's not an exact one-to-one copy. These games aren't really that similar besides the models and the capturing aspect. Palworld is not a turn-based RPG. It's a survival multiplayer game. Pokemon is a turn-based RPG, and the story is completely different. In Palworld, you can capture people and turn them into slaves, and there's also a black market. Hope Pokemon does not do that. And that goes to show another reason Palworld and Pokemon are kind of different. And Palworld is more of a similar Pokemon style game with adult aspects in it. And it's understandable for the Pokemon community to be kind of upset, because Pokemon has made up a lot of people's childhoods. And for a game to just come up and rip off Pokemon, it's understandable. And they've drawn some comparison of the Palworld pals to the Pokemon design. And not gonna lie, some of them are kind of similar, but then some are just a stretch. Like, I can see where some of them have similar color schemes and kind of look alike, but then there's some that are just like, oh, this guy's furry and the Pokemon's furry, so that means they're copied. No, we have those in real life. Those are just animals. Pokemon took inspiration from real life animals. Palworld did not invent animals. That's where the line gets drawn between inspiration and just straight copying. This one here is just a stretch. Like, this Palworld pal taking inspiration from these 4 Pokemon, I don't think that the Palworld designers were really looking at these 4 Pokemon specifically and saying, oh yeah, let's just copy. This Pokemon or this pal is just a furry, like an animal. Yes, animals have tails, animals have fur, but specifically, oh, like look at his neck, it's from Hisuian Arcanine. I don't think they took inspiration from it. Yes, the color scheme is very similar to Leafeon, and the ears, yeah, but still, that is still a big stretch that I don't think Palworld designers were really doing. And some, on the other hand, are a bit more concerning, like the one on the screen. This model is from Scarlet and Violet. It is Luxray. And the other one behind it is a model from Palworld. And they lined each pal and Pokemon together, and they almost line up identically. And the reason why this is a problem is because if Palworld is caught stealing designs from Pokemon, then they're gonna have a huge lawsuit. That is actually stealing and not inspiration. I know for a fact that almost every single design is available on the internet from Pokemon. Modders, ROM hacks, so many models are online for those types of games. So for Palworld to get their hands on the designs would be really easy. Like this Lycanroc in the wolf model, it's a wolf, but still the lines still line up. But Palworld has not been caught for stealing designs from Pokemon, and people are only speculating by putting the models together one by one. But if there is an exact copy from Pokemon to Palworld, then Nintendo will have the right to sue Palworld. But currently, they do not have any right to sue Palworld. If you're enjoying the video so far, drop that sub, help us reach 20k. But the biggest counter argument at the moment is that Pokemon took inspiration from Dragon Quest. Like this graphic right here showing Dragon Quest versus Pokemon. We have Zubats that took inspiration from the Dragon Quest Zubat lookalikes. Then we also have Caterpie lookalike. And we have a bunch of other ones that look very similar. I mean, this Dragonite is kind of a stretch, but you know, Pokemon took some inspiration from previous video game creatures. But the most insane thing to me are the death threats that the developers from Palworld are receiving from people who do not enjoy Palworld. And it's definitely not right for people to send threats to the Palworld developers, whether it's true or not. Because if Nintendo really wanted to take action and sue Palworld developers, they would have done it already. But let's talk about Nintendo and what should happen for the Pokemon community going forward. It's 2024 and the last games we got were in 2022, and it was Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And yes, they were very underwhelming games that the majority of the community disliked. And the last couple of games Nintendo has been producing for Pokemon have been just lackluster to say. I'm a big fan of Pokemon and the games they created, but I've made several videos about this in the past and how the games were very lackluster. But Pokemon is a huge franchise made up into multiple different medias. You have the games, card games, TV, anime, movies, just a whole bunch. And for a lot of people in the community, they are mainly frustrated with the games, and it's understandable because ever since Palworld was created, a lot of people transferred over to Palworld since Pokemon has not been delivering on their games. Personally, this makes me excited to see what Nintendo has in store for the community and if they will deliver what everyone expects from them. We have the Pokemon Direct in late February that usually announces new games for us, and hopefully Game Freak surprises all of us. Because the last time the Pokemon fans were pleasantly surprised and happy with the games was Pokemon Legends Arceus, which was a few years ago, and we don't talk about the game right after that, which I discuss in this video right here. Subscribe if you like Palworld and let me know your opinion on this whole Palworld versus Pokemon situation.